Right, so AEW Full Gear 2025 is coming up this Saturday, and with that it means AEW presented yet another one of their trademark 3-hour AEW Dynamite Collision blocks as a go-home show leading up to the pay-per-view. The reason I bring this up is because they did this before with Wrestle Dream, and to be honest, I was less than impressed with that show. I thought it was a pretty cold show, there wasn't really many hot angles going into Wrestle Dream, and it really didn't feel like a go-home show for a pay-per-view. There were a lot of problems I had with that show, mainly like I said, it didn't feel like a go-home show for a pay-per-view. I didn't even realize there was a pay-per-view coming that weekend. I feel as though it failed to send home many of the angles in any sort of interesting way, and I thought the booking of the women's division was less than stellar on these shows as well. So yeah, we're back for another round of AEW's 3-hour block go-home show to see if they have improved on any of these problems that I talked about in my last review of AEW's last go-home show that they did. So yeah, as I said, it's Full Gear this weekend. I didn't realize it was pay-per-view week once again, but this time I will say that is more on me this time. Just a whole lot going on in wrestling this month, particularly in AEW with Blood and Guts being recently and the Women's Tag Team Tournament ongoing. And then you've got War Games coming too in WWE, I think, at the end of the month, and I just can't keep track. Lots going on this month, but yes, AEW Full Gear is this Saturday, so this is the go-home show for that, and let's jump straight into it and watch this show, and like I said, see if it addresses any of the problems that I had and makes any improvements on them. So like the video and subscribe for more AEW reviews on the channel, as we will also be reviewing AEW Full Gear 2025 after Saturday when it happens. And yeah, let's get straight into this review. Let's watch AEW Dynamite Collision. The show opens in a very interesting way for sure, as Bobby Lashley is out with MVP, both of the Hurt Syndicate of course, and he is out to face Ricochet, that being Bobby Lashley, as they are taking on each other to earn the #1 spot in the Casino Gauntlet match for the new AEW National title, and that's taking place at Full Gear of course. Ricochet does a pre-match promo. It feels like a rib at this point that every wrestling show just has so many pre-match promos now. Has there been an uptick in that, or is it literally just me? This promo, man, I can't lie, it wasn't really great. Ricochet has never really been a master on the mic, though I did think he has faced some improvement on the mic end in the last year or so, but this wasn't really a good one at all. It goes on for quite a bit, it really does drag. He references the Tony Khan Ariel Helwani interview and runs down the crowd before Lashley finally ends it and jumps him and tosses him into the gates of agony to begin the match. And for the match itself, the promo that Ricochet cut probably lasted just as long as the match did, as though Ricochet does get some offense in and it is a bit of a back and forth. This one only goes about 5 minutes, as Lashley for the most part absolutely destroys and squashes Ricochet in this one as he wins with a spear, so he will be the #1 in the Casino Gauntlet, which to be honest I think Ricochet will most obviously be in that match, and I think he's probably gonna win it, and I think him losing here to Lashley only reinforces that for me. As a whole segment it wasn't amazing, the promo wasn't too great like I said, but as a short match I actually did quite enjoy it. Maybe it's just me enjoying watching Lashley just toss guys around, but yeah, I kind of liked that short match there. As we go to backstage words with Samoa Joe and Shibata, as they are hyping up Shibata's match later tonight with Hangman, and then Samoa Joe is of course facing Hangman for the belt at Full Gear. They're hyping up both matches, and then the Young Bucks are being interviewed backstage, and they're asked if they're gonna join the Don Callis family, but Don Callis himself interrupts them before they can say anything, and he says that he has a special ring entrance set up for them as they are out next for their match. The Young Bucks come out and their entrance consists of Don Callis on the Tron introducing them with some crazy ass pyro. They're teaming with Josh Alexander, of course, of the Don Callis family to take on Skyflight, made up of Scorpio Sky and Dante and Darius Martin of Top Flight. Gotta say, I'm really glad to see Scorpio Sky back in the mix and back in the fold. He was really just gone from AEW and just missing unexplainably for a really long time. This match was what it was. It's a fine one. It's an AEW 6-man tag. You get these on literally every single AEW Dynamite, and I'm definitely a bit fatigued from AEW multi-man tags. I've said that multiple times in recent AEW reviews. So yeah, it's a bit formulaic, but I do get why this one was done, as it was mainly done for the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander, who obviously had some issues throughout the match as their teasing this whole Don Callis family alignment and stuff. There's some cool high spots and good stuff from Top Flight that I always enjoy to see, but of course the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander get the win, and the Don Callis family are there post-match, as Don on the mic is trying to convince them to join, but out comes Kenny Omega returning once again as he takes out all the family and hits the ring, but then is jumped by Josh Alexander. Don then instructs the Young Bucks to hit the BTE trigger on Kenny Omega, and they reluctantly oblige, but as they're about to, the Jurassic Express make the save and clear the ring, and obviously it's a 6-man tag at Full Gear, so I thought this was a decent go-home angle, to be fair. We get words with Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale backstage, and they're hyping themselves up in the women's tag title tournament, of course, and they're just being quirky goofballs. Next up, we have Shelton Benjamin up against Mike Bailey now, and this is for the number 2 spot in the Full Gear Casino Gauntlet. Obviously, Bobby Lashley just won the number 1 spot, so this will determine who starts out the match with him. It's a decent one here. It's a quite hard-hitting match. Both of them are using kicks and leg offense throughout this match, Mike Bailey especially, but Shelton Benjamin is also, of course, doing some cool stuff. I always say this whenever I watch Shelton Benjamin in AEW, that is my guy in AEW. I love watching Shelton Benjamin, and you know what? Maybe he could win the national title. I would love to see that. Shelton's a guy I love to see do an AEW singles title run, so that would actually be a really cool opportunity. And interestingly, he does win this match here, which I didn't think he would. I thought Mike Bailey would win this one, obviously because Bobby Lashley won the first one and Shelton Benjamin's in the Hurt Syndicate with him, but no, himself and Bobby will start out the match, so that is pretty interesting. Up next, we have some tag action, as is Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli of the Death Riders up against Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong. Man, I am bored to death of the Death Riders and the conglomeration Vortex. It just feels like they've been mixing up combination of these guys in these groups every single week into random matches for so long now. And the fact that Darby Allin is also involved still is just so baffling to me after he won an I Quit match on pay-per-view against Jon Moxley, and then there was the Blood and Guts match too. I don't know how this is still going, but Full Gear surely has to be the end with Jon Moxley facing Kyle O'Reilly and Darby Allin facing Pac, but I am worried. Moxley and Claudio win here. It was what it was. It was probably skippable, hit or miss match. I didn't care for this one much at all, because like I said, I just don't care about the Death Riders conglomeration Vortex anymore. We get some post-match stuff with Kyle O'Reilly, who gets Mox in a submission, and he's tapping out as Garcia and Yuta are then stomping on Kyle, and he's just no-selling it. It looks terrible before the conglomeration finally clear the ring, and there must have been a miscue because this was awkward as hell. The conglomeration must have been late to hit the ring and attack Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, as they just had to stand there awkwardly and try and stomp Kyle O'Reilly, who just had to no-sell it and try to look like a beast, but it just looked stupid. Yeah, just a complete mess of a segment. Not a great way to send home these angles. I really hope Kyle O'Reilly just beats Jon Moxley, Darby Allin just beats Pac, and everyone can just go their separate ways. We can do the Death Riders explosion storyline finally with Mox being overthrown by Pac. Surely that must be the direction, and let's just get these guys away from each other. Brodito talk backstage, hyping up their match at Full Gear against FTR as they're defending their tag belts against them at the show, and then so do Kenny and the Jurassic Express as they're hyping up their match too. And up next is Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa, who now go by the Timeless Love Bombs as their tag team name, and they're up against Alex Windsor and Riho in the women's tag title tournament. It's a first round match. This was a nice tag match. I really enjoyed this AEW Women's World Tag Title Tournament so far. I think it's got a lot of focus on it, and it's actually good to see it getting time on these shows. Only issue is I think both matches on this show were a bit predictable. We'll obviously get to the other tag match later that took place on the Collision portion of this show, but after the Babes of Wrath, Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron, and the Sisters of Sin won on the other bracket, which were actually some unpredictable results, I think it just made the matches on this show a little more predictable and kind of made it obvious who was gonna win. Yeah, fun one here, like I said, a nice little match in this women's tag title tournament. There was a fun submission trade spot in the middle of the match where they kept rolling each other over so that the lock was applying on the other person. That ended in a double headbutt, and then the match ended with Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa picking up the win, of course. I think that was fairly obvious. Then Mark Briscoe is interviewed backstage, but it is stopped as he is attacked by members of the Don Callis family. He is of course facing Carl Fletcher for the TNT title again. This is also a feud that has been just never ending, the conglomeration and Don Callis family and Briscoe and Fletcher. Let's please get this one over and done with as well. After Full Gear, this has just been going on for too long as well once again. But anyway, it's main event time of the Dynamite portion of the show, as World Champion Hangman Page is taking on Shibata of the Ops. Hangman Page kicks off this match instantly as he jumps Shibata running in from the crowd. Not like Hangman to do that, but he's got to bring out this extra gritty side against the Ops, of course. But throughout this match, he is not able to out-heel and outwit Katsuyori Shibata, who is a refreshingly really fun heel to watch in this match. And I thought Shibata worked this match really well. A really nice heel performance from him, like I said, as Adam Page is trying to fight around that. And I think this main event on the Dynamite portion was the best match of the Dynamite portion of the show. I think a lot of the other matches were pretty skippable, but this was a nice one. And Hangman Page, of course, gets the win as he's facing Samoa Joe at the pay-per-view this Saturday, and they have a little stare down. I would like to see a little more to send this angle home once again with Page and Joe. I feel like this was the exact same problem on their last go home show, as Adam Page and Samoa Joe didn't really get a good angle on that show either. But yeah, there's then a recap of an FTR promo from earlier, as that's all the tag title stuff and build for their Full Gear match with Brodido that we get on this show, just backstage promos from both teams, which is kind of disappointing. And we then move into the Collision portion of the episode as we're in the third hour now, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little checked out by this point. I was low-key playing Fortnite and double screening AEW Collision at the same time. Code Top 10 Wrestling on the Fortnite store, by the way. Get your V-Bucks. I have been absolutely cooking on this Simpsons season. You do not want to face me, trust me. Anyway, the matches on this Collision portion of the show were Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir, who were taking on Anna Jay and Ty Mello, aka Ty J, in the Women's Tag Title Tournament, their first round match. Also, quite a predictable one. I thought this one was just a pretty average match. I like the way that Ty J have been working recently. They seem like they really care about these women's tag belts, and it really shows in their performances, and I do really appreciate that. And Bayne and Shafir are a great team. They have a great look, but this match as a whole I thought was quite average, and also once again very predictable, especially with Tony and Mina's win earlier on the show. They've been building up to stuff with Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir, of course. Ty J weren't even involved in the Blood and Guts match, so it's pretty obvious that Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir were going to win this one, and they did. It does kind of suck for Ty Mello and Anna Jay, as they are the most OG team in this tournament. They've been together since 2020 in AEW, so it's a shame they lost in the first round. But to me, Ty J come off as the perfect team to be the second women's tag team champions, and I know that might sound crazy, but to me, I think they'd be the perfect OG baby faces to rise up and take on maybe the heel winning inaugural champions. But yeah, surprisingly, this match was a lot better than the next one on this show, that being Kazuchika Okada versus Mascara Dorada. I've enjoyed the performances of Mascara Dorada recently, and Kazuchika Okada is someone who I just need to kind of get real about, because I think he's been phoning it in for a bit of a while in AEW and hasn't really cared for a lot of his AEW run, and I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of like the idea of Okada more than Okada's run so far in AEW, and I was tricked into thinking this would be an awesome match and Okada would show up for it, but it didn't really seem like he cared in this one, and it was a really sloppy, botchy match here. They did pick it up towards the end, but it was a super awkward start as they botched pretty much right out the gate, and it just kills the vibe of the match. Yeah, I was disappointed with this one. Kazuchika Okada gets the win though, and with that win, himself and members of the Don Callis family will be challenging for the CMLL World Trios titles at AEW Tailgate Brawl this Saturday before Full Gear. And then the main event and the closing angle on this show and the entire show, not just the Collision portion of all 3 hours, was Mercedes Moné versus Red Velvet, of course for the Ring of Honor Women's TV Championship, Velvet being the lineal champion and Moné being the interim. And yeah, fairs man, good main event, best match across the show in my opinion. Mercedes Moné just delivers again. Once again, she also collects yet another belt. And that's 2 videos now where she's been the main event in the show I've watched and has won another belt. She is truly the belt collection goddess right now. Obviously, Mercedes Moné's belt collection gimmick is quite the divisive divisive one. There's many opinions, especially on her winning the belts on the independent scene, but her winning here I think is fine because it's a Ring of Honor belt, it's part of AEW, and Red Velvet did have a long run with the belt, going over a year and a half with it. But yeah, as long as Mercedes Moné is defending it on Ring of Honor shows, then I don't see the issue. Obviously, it's the Ring of Honor Television Championship, so hopefully we can see her appear on Ring of Honor Weekly TV at least once. You know, don't do a Chris Jericho on us, but I have a feeling it most likely will be the case that this belt is probably getting defended on AEW TV, despite the fact she has an AEW TV championship that is hardly being defended right now. At the very least, I hope she's on Final Battle, which is coming up soon, but yeah, it was a good match here. And Chris Statlander was on commentary for this one, and Mercedes Moné, straight after winning, takes out Chris Statlander to send home that match, going into Full Gear. Of course, that's for the AEW Women's World Championship. Listen, there's a lot said about the belt collection gimmick, like I said, but I think we can all agree, at the very least, that Moné should not win that one. Chris Statlander should absolutely be retaining, in my opinion. But yeah, that's how the show closes. This match actually went over the 3 hours. It had an overrun, which is just crazy. I thought this match, or this show even, was just fine. In-ring wise, I thought a lot of the matches were kind of skippable. I thought Moné versus Velvet was good, Paige and Shibata was good, and I did actually enjoy the short Lashley versus Ricochet opener. Every other match was either fine or average or not very good, but just skippable either way. As a go-home show though, I thought it was decent, definitely better than the last one, and they got a lot more set up for this show as well, as sending home angles they already had going on. A lot of matches they actually had announced long in advance for Full Gear, which is nice to see, though they did also cram in a lot of new match announcements on this show too. I thought a lot of the stuff they sent home was mostly effective. I am not a big fan of the tag title stuff going on, and also Hangman and Samoa Joe, though the match with Shibata was good, there wasn't really a definitive angle with himself and Joe to send that angle home, though the feud as a whole I think has been pretty decent. And yeah, the Death Rider conglomeration verse was just a total mess tonight, a complete mess of a segment. And yeah, that's all I can really think of to talk about on this AEW Dynamite Collision doubleheader. I think this was about a 6.75, maybe a 6.5 out of 10 for me. It was a fine show as we move to Full Gear, which is of course happening this Saturday, and I will be watching and reviewing for the channel of course, and I'll go ahead and make my predictions for Full Gear as I always do in these go home show reviews. As starting out on the Saturday tailgate show, we've got Boom and Doom of Big Boom AJ and QT Marshall against Roppongi Vice of Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta. Listen, I enjoyed the Big Boom AJ stuff at first, but let's make sure this is the last one. To be honest, I'd give Roppongi Vice the win here, but I reckon Boom and Doom will probably win. That's my prediction. Either way, I don't know why that match is happening. I also don't know why this match is happening, a 4-way tag team match for 200k, the Acclaimed, Bang Bang Gang, Big Bill and Brian Keith, and the Outrunners. Cool, we'll just say the Bang Bang Gang to win this one, or Caster and Bowens. Yeah, we'll go for the Bang Bang Gang. Then it's El Sky team of Mascara Dorada, Mystico, and Neon against the Don Callis family of Okada, Takeshita, and Hechi Chero. This is the Trios match for the CMLL World Championships, the Trios Championships that I specified earlier. I think El Sky team will retain here. I am excited for this one, to be fair, mainly for Mystico and Takeshita and Hechi Chero, not Dorada and Okada after that bum-ass performance last night. And then Hook and Eddie Kingston are in action once again against unnamed opponents. This Eddie Kingston return run continues to just absolutely baffle me what they're doing. Yeah, I'll go for them to obviously win that match too, but going to the main card, we'll go from the bottom. Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly in a no-holds-barred match. I'm going to go for Kyle O'Reilly to win that one. Then there's a 4-way match with the semi-final Women's Tag Title Tournament participants, as the winner and the winning team gets to choose the stipulation for their semi-final match in the tournament. I don't get why they don't just do this 4-way match as, I don't know, the title match. You could do it as an elimination match to make it more interesting. Why do this weird 4-way tag stipulation? But yeah, good to see another women's match on the card at the very least. I'll go for Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa to win this one, because they did a promo on Dynamite where they kind of spoiled what stipulation they would pick if they won, which is a Type A death match, so I guess that just kind of told us they're going to win this one. Darby Allin versus Pac. I think Darby Allin should win, but to be honest, I'm going to predict Pac to win this one, and I think this Darby Allin versus Mox feud will just go on forever. Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe for the TNT belt. If Briscoe loses, he is forced to join the Don Callis family. listen, I need Briscoe to win, because then we can finally end this feud, but if Fletcher wins, then Briscoe's going to join, and the storyline is going to continue going on forever. And though I think Briscoe in the Don Callis family might be kind of interesting, I just want all these guys to go their separate ways already. Unfortunately, I think Fletcher's going to win this one, and Don Callis family and Mark Briscoe's feud is just going to go on forever, and he'll join the family. Casino Gauntlet for the National Championship. I'd love Shelton Benjamin to win it, like I said, but I'm going for Ricochet. $1 million trios match, Kenny Omega and the Jurassics against the Bucks and Josh Alexander. I'll go for Omega and the Jurassics in this one. Brodito versus FTR for the tag belts. We'll go for FTR to win the tag belts and gain them in this one here. Hangman Page versus Samoa Joe in a steel cage match for the AEW World title. Obviously, Hangman Page is going to retain here. Imagine Samoa Joe won. That would be a crazy decision. And then Chris Statlander versus Mercedes Moné, their third time facing each other in AEW. This time for the Women's World Championship being held by Chris Statlander, who should retain here, and I'm going to predict her to do just that. I think Mercedes Moné winning is a decision that would get a lot of backlash and wouldn't be the right decision at all, as Statlander feels like she hasn't held the belt for too long. But yeah, definitely a lot of matches here like that one, Statlander and Moné, which is probably the match I'm most anticipating that could be match of the night or even match of the year contenders. But whether AEW Full Gear 2025 is good or bad, at least we know it's going to be an interesting one that's full of drama, as it always is, and we'll be the first to discuss it on the Top 10 Wrestling channel right after the show is done on Sunday, most likely, or on the Monday. But yeah, I'll see you guys there for that video regardless, and that's it from me talking about the AEW Full Gear Go Home Dynamite / Collision episode and my AEW Full Gear 2025 predictions. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the shows and your predictions for Full Gear coming up this weekend. Leave a like on the video if you did enjoy, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss a video on the Top 10 Wrestling channel. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye and keep on rolling.